This next project is also exhibited in the front of Dallas. It works in diptychs. On the left side, these are screen-printed maps on canvas, and I've hand-stitched on this map every person that I love or loved. So I thought about where they were, and I placed them. And I also, in the second level, have been thinking about where they're not, and why not. So then I also did the second map, which is people I could love. So theoretically, that could be 7 billion people. And I'm interested in finding out why not? What if I had moved somewhere else? What if I was born somewhere else? Or what if I meet someone later? And on a greater scale, how different would the world really be if all of us cared for someone in every corner of the world? And if we don't, what does it take for us to do so? Can we just imagine that we care and then as a result really concretely care? Is it really all in our head? Is it perhaps more a conscious act than we think? This next project consists of asking people to draw the world blindfolded, so their eyes are covered. These are maps that I've asked a few friends, other artists to draw. Usually get some really creative results. And it's very fun to do. So from start to finish, they cannot see what they do. I've also done this project with kids, which is great fun. And often, the kids' maps are better than their teachers'. And while it is a fun project, it does remind me of a few instances in the past where men, and I say men quite consciously, have literally sat around tables and drawn lines, abstract lines onto maps, and have caused decades of repercussions that we're still experiencing all over the world today. And many are well known, many are not well known. I'll just mention 4 that are very relevant briefly. One is, of course, the whole continent of Africa. After decades of colonization, it was split into these very artificial countries as they are now. And there's no part of the world that has as many straight lines as here. There's, of course, the splitting of India and Pakistan after the British left in 1947, and you can see the 2 parts of Pakistan in green, which when you look at this, you of course understand that it could never survive as a single country, so it later split into Bangladesh and Pakistan. There's naturally Syria, which is still in a tragic conflict that is nourished by a line that was drawn by the British and the French in 1916. And of course, Palestine and Israel, Israel having been established or re-established, however you look at it, on the same land as Palestine through a map drawn by the UN, which is still shifting and never ceases to evolve. This very last project I'll mention is another ongoing one, another unfinished. It's started like this in 2010, and currently looks more like this. This was just taken in my studio last week before going. And it is essentially a big map of the world. It's painted white on white. I make 1 mark for every death that I hear or read about. I keep journals of my sources, and I place the marks on the map geographically. So if it's 20 in New York, I make 20 marks in New York. If it's 20,000 in Syria, I make 20,000 marks in Syria in concentric circles. If areas of the canvas are really thick, it's either because they have a lot of deaths, or maybe because the media and the news that I read focus on these places. And I started this project not really out of an interest for the morbid aspect, but more because it was the opposite feeling. It was really trying to count every human life in the same way. which is impossible to do, but that's why the painting is white on white. But I still think that there is something to learn from the process of doing it, from the act of thinking, and from the stubbornness, perhaps. Some kind of global consciousness that has to form itself in my head as the layers of paint thicken. And to end the talk, I don't know actually if we have time for questions, because we started so late. So if you have questions, ask me later, please. And what I will leave you with is 2 requests. They're not really advice, and take them or leave them. A lot of you probably already think about this, but they're really just small things that I think are conscious things, little things we can do and make a world of a difference. One is to be conscious about the words we use when we refer to continents or countries. For example, you can say which country in Africa when you refer to a place there, rather than say Africa as a whole continent, because every single country in there has its own individual character. You can also say USA or the US rather than say America, so that you don't forget about the 34 other countries that are on that continent. And then the second request, let me check my note. Yes, is to, whenever you do have to use a map in your personal life, in your professional life, try to think about using a Peters map or a Narakau map. And that's it. Thank you very much.